Hey guys, VideoJames, and today we're going to be doing another toy review. The last time I did a toy review was on the Nitros Bumblebee from Dark of the Moon, and that actually got a lot better feedback than I expected. That when I went back and I watched it in editing and uploading, that it didn't really seem like it was going to get that good of a review, a response, that I thought a lot of people were going to not like it because of how it looked and how it sounded, that it wasn't really any better than the Sonic Screwdriver review, in my opinion, but a lot of people actually did like it. A lot of people actually did find it to be a good review, and I actually got a new sub off of it, so shout out to the new sub. I actually forget his name right now, but shout out to you, dude. But anyway, today we're going to be reviewing my War for Cybertron Bumblebee figure. And before I start this video, I'm going to say right away that I actually lost the gun to this guy. That he used to have a little gun that you kind of stored down in the bottom, right in between his legs. But I kind of lost that a long time ago and was never able to find it since. But anyway, this is actually one of my more favorite Bumblebees. It's probably my third favorite. Well, in terms of toys I actually have, it's probably my third favorite. And it is actually one of the few Bumblebees that I actually have from a non-movie franchise that it isn't from the Michael Bay line, and it isn't really from a cartoonish line. But I do actually have a lot more Michael Bay film toys than I would expect. But anyway, this is actually one of my favorite Bumblebees just because I really like the colors on this one and the detailing. That we see these little markings on the front actually do look pretty cool, and he's got a nice little balance of yellow and black, and that's really important when it comes to Bumblebee, because he doesn't want to be more yellow than black or more black than yellow. And then we see he's got a lot of red on him, actually, that we see the inner rings on his wheels are actually red. We see he's got a red line going all the way around his body, and he's actually got red headlights and red Autobot symbol right on the front. You can see right there, little Autobot logo on the front. And this figure is actually one of the smaller ones I've seen. It is kind of pod-shaped, actually. It is actually about only about 4.5 inches long, which is kind of shocking to me because I wouldn't think there would be a Bumblebee that small. But he is often referred to as short in the Transformers franchise, so it kind of makes sense. And here he is next to the Transformers Generation 1 Bumblebee and the Transformers 1 1977 Camaro Bumblebee. And we can see that he is actually kind of smaller than both of them, that the vehicle modes for both of the other figures are way bigger than this Bumblebee. But we do see that he's got kind of a more war-torn yellow rather than just regular yellow, that the Gen 1 Bumblebee and the 1977 Bumblebee both kind of have brighter yellows, whereas War for Cybertron kind of has a faded grayish kind of yellow instead. And I do kind of like that, because it kind of emphasizes the fact that he's been in battle, that he's seen a lot of fights, and he hasn't really been that unscathed, that he's been captured a few times, been destroyed. Well, not destroyed, but been beaten up a lot of times. And it does actually kind of emphasize that with kind of war yellow paint. And I do like that. But anyway, moving on to the transformation, this guy is actually one of the biggest pains in the rear end to transform back into vehicle mode, which is why most of the time I kind of have him in vehicle mode all the time. But anyway, first thing we want to do with this figure is we want to actually pull out the legs, which are actually the biggest problem. You want to pull them out of here. You can see right here they kind of connect to the wheel with this little hinge. You want to sever that connection and kind of pull them out and up so that they kind of disconnect like that. And you want to do that for both sides, that both sides there's a hinge that you kind of have to detach from. And then you can just pull the legs right out of the bottom. There's a little peg on the back of the feet that kind of keeps them attached to the bottom. And we see those little pegs right there actually attach in there. And we can just pull them straight out and just take them out and put them on the front of the car. And he does actually come apart really badly, that a lot of times he doesn't really peg together a lot. But then we just take this little gray part. You can kind of see the peg there. I can't really see it that good on the camera. But we just take that and push it up into the front of the car. And then we straighten out his legs and push them down. Like that. And then we want to flip the feet out. Well, not all the way out, but you want to kind of flip them inward like this and flip the yellow part into the back, so that when the transformation of the legs actually happens, the feet are kind of in a perfect place to where they kind of are just ready to flip around and peg in. And then we see, this is actually one of the cooler mechanics on this bee, that the wheel and the leg are kind of blocking each other in both modes, that the wheel kind of blocks the leg when transforming back, and the leg kind of blocks the wheel when transforming into robot mode. So we want to pull this out, and it's not going to break, don't worry. It does take a little bit of force, but it doesn't really kind of break. And then we just flip this around, and it pegs straight into the wheel. And then we just, crap. The foot came off. And we just flip that little yellow thing around, clip it in, and then flip the foot around to where it's underneath the wheel. Hopefully that doesn't cause a lot of damage. I have had some figures before where ball joints have kind of done damage, and if they came undone, they kind of stayed that way. The wheel on this one's kind of stuck. If I can get it. Wow, it's really stuck. There we go. And then we just, once again, flip it around, peg it in, and flip the foot underneath the tire. And then moving on to the top, we do actually see, this is one of my biggest gripes about this figure, is that the top right here, this little section, doesn't really ever peg in, but we can kind of tell it was supposed to. And that kind of teased me off, because it kind of makes the figure look a little bit bad. That I don't really expect him to have these little holes in the top. I mean, he does have these, like every Bumblebee has. Almost every one of them has these little holes in the top that are unexplained. But this kind of just looks unpleasing, and it kind of makes me feel like I should be able to do more. But anyway, next step is we want to actually pull the front wheels out and push them down, well, push them back, not down, to where they're parallel to the rest of the body. And then we can just pull the arms down, like so, pull the arm down like so, and just straighten it out to where it's just in a straight line, if this figure doesn't give too much resistance. Sometimes the figures do actually give a lot more resistance than I expect. And then we see we got the arms and legs kind of in position already, and then we see, next thing we want to do is just tilt the back of the car to where it's kind of pushing up, and kind of push it up that way to where it's kind of like intersecting and perpendicular to the rest of the car. And then we see we want to actually push this part, the middle part of the car, into the back. And then, actually, you don't want to do that yet. First thing you want to do is push these out, push the arms out to get these out. Then you want to push that down. And then we see this little top part here kind of pegs into the back. We just do that. And then it's kind of all one piece that you can just move around. And then we want to push this, actually, well, we want to pull it this way, so that this little part right here, the empty slot, is kind of completely empty to what we can see. And then we want to push this down, and then there's that little peg that you can kind of see before I push this in. There's a little peg right here, and these little kind of hooks right here, that we want to get that to go down and onto those hooks so that the hood will stay into place once it is transformed. And sometimes this one is a bit of a pickle that it doesn't really want to always go in, but you can see right there I actually did manage to get it in first. And then the last part of this transformation is just kind of push the head back. You want to push the back of the head right here down, and then the front will come up like so. There we go. And there we have the War for Cybertron Bumblebee completely transformed into his robot mode. And we see he doesn't really have his gun. Again, I lost that, but normally he's got like a little arm pistol, kind of put that in either hand. But he also comes with built-in energon blades. That on both arms, we got these little red blades that kind of come out. And I do like that, because they're kind of keeping to the Transformers War for Cybertron storyline, that almost every Transformer in that storyline had a blade of some sort on one part of their body, that Optimus even had a giant battle axe, and Megatron had a giant mace. But we see that this figure stands probably about 5.5 inches from the horns. I do see that Bumblebee actually has horns on very few figures now, and I don't really understand what the horns were actually supposed to symbolize. And it's just kind of like points and stingers or something. But anyway, we're going to move this back. Well, fireworks going off. We're going to move this back and compare him to the Transformers Dark of the Moon Racing Repaint Bumblebee, as well as the Transformers Dark of the Moon Nitros Bumblebee that I did a review on before. And we see that he's actually dwarfed by both of those figures, that the figures from Dark of the Moon kind of make him smaller, and he's actually the shortest out of the three, but compared to the Generation 1 Bumblebee, he is actually taller than it by about a fourth of his body size. And then we got one more comparison, and that is to the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Leader Class Optimus Prime, and the Transformers Age of Extinction Voyager Class Grimlock. If I can get the feet on Grimlock to fit. What happened to your feet? Dear God. Okay, feet are the worst part of these. There we go. And we see that B is actually dwarfed by both of these guys, that he's only about half their body size, and that Grimlock is actually bigger than everything. That Grimlock's even bigger than Prime, which surprises me, because I would have thought Prime would be bigger than Grimlock. Actually, no, I don't know why I would have thought that. Stupid James. But anyway, that's actually going to be probably about it for the comparisons. That B is actually one of the smaller Transformers, so it kind of makes sense that he'd be smaller than stuff like Prime and Grimlock, and even sometimes his own self. But we do see that he still stands pretty tall, and he does actually have kind of nice posability on this figure, that you can kind of do little nice, like, striking poses, that you can kind of put one arm back and shove one arm forward to where it's like he's on guard and ready just to stab something. And the legs don't really offer great posability because you can't really maneuver them around too good. You can't really rotate these little parts right here, these little things right here, to where you can kind of make the legs go forward. And really the only posability you got on this figure is in the top. So he's not really a posable figure, more of just a mess around with figure and have fun with. And I do like how they kind of tried to keep the little markings, these little black markings that we can kind of see, they're still on the arms, but they also tried to move them down here to the actual body of the car. And I really like that, because those markings are actually pretty cool. They're like, to me, they kind of remind me of, like, visors. That, like, when you look at something from a movie and you see, like, they have a visor on, that it kind of looks like that, only with, like, kind of pointed angles. But anyway, giving this one a review, probably 4 out of 5. Again, this B is one of my favorites, but the transformation is just an absolute pain when it's getting him back into vehicle mode. And again, I really like the coloring on this. I really like the detail. They did do a lot of detail on this, and the robot and the vehicle modes don't really look too much like they're trying to hide anything from each other. That the robot mode kind of looks like an actual robot instead of just a robot with vehicle parts shoved all over him. And the vehicle mode does actually hide a lot of the robot mode, to where it's almost like you're not really seeing any robot at all. But anyway, that's going to be it for my Transformers War for Cybertron Bumblebee review. Again, one of my favorites. I'll leave a link to the toy down in the description. I'll leave a link to where you can actually look at the toy down in the description. And if you did like this video, go ahead and slap the like button as always, and I will see you guys later.